You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It's your host, Brian Fullerton, here hanging out with you guys. Actually, still here live at Aquascape. And I got none other than the man, Greg Wittstock, on the podcast. What's up, Greg?
Hey.
Ready to rock?
Thanks for having me on in my man shed back here next to the Sandbox studio.
Well, it's funny. We just did a podcast episode just a few hours ago with Brian, and we were talking about the outdoor competition that's going on here. We're talking about this man shed that you have. And I told Brian, once you're done with this whole project back here, I said, if you need to get this shed off your hands, give me a shout. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. You know, it's four buddies that decided to start a side hustle just doing sheds. And it's taken off because, as you know, everybody's working from home now.
Absolutely. Well, this thing looks great. So here's what, if folks have been living under a rock and they don't know Greg Wittstock, the pond guy, I want to go into your story a little bit here. But, you know, you guys have heard Greg's story. Maybe this same time last year we did another episode, and it was just a really, really good, conversation to hear a little bit more about Aquascape, Aqualand, and everything you got going on, right?
Yep.
So we'll kind of recap that a little bit, but one thing that I get a lot of questions from my audience, Greg, and guys that are owner-operators or maybe hiring their first couple guys is how do they grow the company? How do they scale? How do they hire that first team, that first crew, and grow outside of just being an owner-operator? Like, as you know, we have a lot of lawn care guys that are mow and blow, right?
Yep.
And you guys do a lot more landscaping, pond features and ponds and all this fun stuff. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about growing business, growing team, putting people in an environment where they can grow. And literally, we just had one of your best guys on, Brian. And Brian,
what?
You're smiling. Here we go.
Well, of course, Brian wasn't always my best guy, right?
Yeah.
Brian started me when he was 18. And I think that's enough said right there, right?
Absolutely.
Classic 18-year-old kid, and he was arrested on his first day on the job because he was arrested.
Well, he left that off on his show.
Yeah, he tends to leave that off. That was a long time ago. That would have been 1995. So
right.
He was driving with my money because I was at a show.
Okay.
And he was selling bacteria, and he decided when he pulled out of the parking lot to drive in the parking lane instead of the main part of the road, and the police pulled him over and I said, well, yeah, but you don't get arrested for doing that. He goes, well, I didn't have a driver's license. And I go, well, why didn't you tell me that? And he goes, well, would you have hired me then? I go, no. He goes, well, that's why I didn't tell you that. And I go, well, that kind of makes sense. So, and the rest has been downhill ever since. No, but
details.
The reason I believe in God is that, of course, now Brian has to deal with those kids.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it all comes around, goes around. But he was but the thing that Brian had, and the reason that he has been here for 26 years, is he was passionate.
Yeah.
And he had so you hire for attitude, you train for aptitude. And we have to continue to remind ourselves that because after 30 years in business, you've forgotten more than you know.
Yeah.
And one of the stories that Brian actually says is he says, when you told me you want me to build a berm, I didn't know what a berm was. He's an 18-year-old kid, and and the word berm was not something that was in his vernacular.
Yeah.
And so we have to remind ourselves that on a continuous basis when we have new people in here. And we have the same issues that any other contractor has. Is turnover in your crews and whatnot. But that's why, of course, we have our systems and processes so that we can do that. So for me, when you say probably the thing that I'm most proud about, is the team.
Yeah.
130 teammates.
Okay.
And Ed is the longest one. Ed, the pond professor on YouTube and Instagram, and Brian is the second longest one because back in those days when we started, that's all we did was install water features, and of course I parlayed it into manufacturing and when I patented my filter system and send that out. But the thing that I asked myself, Brian, that I think is a fantastic question.
Yeah.
Is this the job of a CEO?
Right.
So when I was building ponds back in the day, I would say to myself, is this a job of the CEO to be building ponds? And then, of course, my answer, everyone's answer is going to be different, right?
Right.
My answer to that was, no, that's a job of a foreman.
Right.
And then Ed was my third guy that was in the position, but he's the one that stayed, right?
Yep.
Ed was my first foreman that's been around for that long. The next thing I said was, is this the job of a CEO to be selling the ponds? And, of course, that's the job of a
salesman.
So I got an outside sales guy, and so I just kept working through it. Not everybody works out, but the thing is that I did every job in the business.
Right.
and then I found somebody that can do it almost as good as me, or decent enough to get by.
Sure.
And then eventually, when they do that fully, it allows them to do it better than me.
Right.
And so I would be the first person to say that I cannot hold a candle to Brian and Ed's pond building experience, because that's what those guys do.
Right.
And then, of course, the trick is that they have to train the next generation too,
yes,
and everything else. So the question that I asked myself, that I would encourage all business owners to ask themselves is this the job of a CEO? Is this the job of a CEO to be paying bills?
Right.
Maybe that's an accountant. Is this the job of a CEO to be, doing the sales or whatever it is?
Right.
And everybody has a different answer for that. But if you answer that question, yes, it is, yes, it is, yes, it is, well, then you're going to be a one-man band forever.
Right.
And for me, it was about hiring for attitude, finding the right people, giving them the right skill, giving them the right tools to succeed. So
yes,
you don't just throw somebody out there. When I went with the trained sales guy, he went with me for half a year.
Yeah.
Out on consultations and whatnot.
Right.
So that question, I think every business owner that wants to grow should always say is this the job of a CEO? And when it's not, in their mind, then they need to find somebody that can do it, quote unquote, almost as good as them do. Give them the right tools,
right,
and the time to do it, and then eventually turn it over to them. And eventually, they'll get better at you than that, because that's their full-time job.
More of Brian's interview with Greg Wittstock, the president and owner of Aquascape, in just a moment. How are you today? I just want you guys to know we appreciate you. Thank you for following the podcast. Thanks for taking the time to rate and review the show. I will be reading some of your reviews very shortly in an upcoming episode. I guess the big news around here, outside of Brian and Liz expecting a baby girl, that's so exciting for them, is this whole ball of wax promotion, which, by the way, we now have a firm end date of Friday, April the 30th. That's the drop dead date. You've still got time to snag this business-changing offer. The whole ball of wax over at LaunchpreneurAcademy.com includes every training program on the site. That includes all the postcards and door hangers. It's all bundled in. In addition, we've teamed up with Caleb and Brittany Allman and the Hardscape Academy to give you their How to Install Pavers, plus the How to Install Retaining Walls training courses, and we're throwing in the Build Your Future Q&A webinar that features both the Allmans and the Fullertons. It's simple. Do you want a successful 2021? Then do yourself a favor and get the whole ball of wax. It's a $3,000 value, and it's on sale through the 30th of the month for only $999. And in addition, I don't think I mentioned this, you get not one, but 2 coaching calls with Brian. The link will be in the show notes. And before Brian returns, I want to just thank our amazing partner, Corey Ballard, and his entire team for sponsoring today's podcast. You guys are awesome.
Ballard Innovative Products is a full line of gear for the lawn and landscape professional. From mower gear, safety gear, trailer racks, equipment securement, equipment servicing tools, aerators, mower blades, X-blades, aluminum baggers, and much more to make you efficient, effective, safe, and profitable in the field. Check out Ballard-Inc.com to help dominate and elevate your business. Ballard Innovative Products. With over 20 years of selling accessories and 30 years in the business, we're sure that we've got something you can't live without. We appreciate the support and look forward to serving you this season. Stay safe and keep grinding, friends. And don't forget to use Brian's 10 to save 10% at Ballard-Inc.com.
I don't want to go too fast on this. I know it sounds kind of like simple stuff to you, but this is a lot of stuff that I've been trying to preach really for the last year on the podcast.
Sure.
About 4 years ago, I heard a guy say the goal in your company is to be a quitter, right?
Yep.
To quit things.
Sure.
So the guy said a really good story, and it was a whole analogy. And he said, when you run a company, and he was talking probably like a traditional company like you have right here, not maybe a lawn and landscape business, but he said, in the beginning, you're going to have to do sales, do marketing, answer the phones and take out the trash. But the goal is to get enough sales coming in to hire out the person so they can stop taking out the trash.
Sure.
So then you can focus on selling, right? Get some more sales coming in, hire out the accounting, right? Get some more sales coming in, hire out the marketing. Get some more sales coming in, hire out the sales. And then the role of a CEO or the president of a company is to vision cast, recruit, and build culture. And that's what he said, and it was the most eye-opening thing I had ever heard 4 or 5 years ago as a struggling small business owner saying, I'm doing everything, I'm doing nothing effectively, and I have zero progress. because I'm wearing too many hats. I'm focusing on things that I shouldn't be, and I'm not doing what I should be.
And that's the thing too. It's what is your strengths.
Amen.
And so for me, I was a good pond builder. I was a good pond salesman. I was never a really good office person.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
But
I can relate.
Yeah, but I eventually figured out what my strengths are, which is very narrow. I have a very narrow strength things, but team building is one of them. Culture. I do the first job of a CEO, so I'll add to your friend there. The first job of a CEO is to guide and guard the company culture. Mm-hmm. If you have one person working for you, there's still a culture. Mm-hmm. What are you going to stand for? What are you going to do to incentivize? How are you going to reward and appreciate? All of those things are important. But my job is not to have a job. Mm-hmm. My job is to work on the business, not in the business.
Yep.
And guide and guard the company culture. And trust me when I say that's a big, big job.
Yeah.
And then everybody that's in their jobs eventually will become better at doing their jobs because you hire the right people with the right attitude, you give them the right resources to succeed, then you get out of their way, and that's kind of one of the keys, getting out of their way.
And I got to say, the culture here, we were just talking this morning, right 10 or 11 o'clock over there at the construction table.
Yeah, when you woke up.
Yeah. Hey, I'm the most honest person. I am not a morning person.
No, you are.
You were like, you want to do some stuff in the morning and do a podcast tomorrow? I go, no. I said, I'll do it after 3, 4 o'clock. And actually, right time, what is it right now? It's 3:44. I tell you, I wake up after 3.
I'll bring you your Red Bull tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I was like, you guys need to get a Red Bull around here? And he goes, we got Coca-Cola. I said, fine, fair enough. But I was telling you straight up feedback, like, not that you need anything from me, but I said one thing I remember 3 years ago to something that I remember today is the culture. I said, Chris and Brian, they sound like you, they walk like you, they talk like you. You guys are all peas in a pod. And in the office, Colleen to who's the other guy, Jeff, that I met?
Jeff Payton is my VP of Business Development Manager. He's been here for 25 years, too.
Great dude. Everybody's all on the same page, culture-wise, family-wise. And I saw the core values out front where everybody's a family. And so the point is that I love what you're doing here with creating culture, growing the company, and hiring your replacement. And I think if you're just a lawn care guy out there with just you or you and a couple guys, you always got to be teaching, training, and replacing yourself. I'm going through the exact same growth right now with adding a couple guys to our company. So because I need to get off the mower so I can do more stuff with YouTube, build my house.
That's an hourly wage job.
Sure.
So you're quote unquote quitting an hourly wage job to do higher level type of thinking and higher level type of things, so you can work and then you can create opportunities for other people.
Yeah.
Where the sky's the limit for them as well.
Did you, and you grew this company? It seems not, fast, but I'm sure it was like going through like molasses in January at the time. But the company's grown pretty well the last 20, 30 years, right? Did you ever feel like when was the right time to hire people? Did you ever feel like this anxiety of like letting go or anything like that? Because I know a lot of guys are probably dealing with that.
That's one of the things that I was talking about with letting go. So this is funny, Brian. How many of your listeners and yourself included in me, of course, back in the day have ever said this quote, I need to find someone just like me.
Sure.
The last person in the world that you want to hire is someone, you'll be butting heads all the time. You'll be doubling your problems.
Sure. Yeah.
So you have to find, and standing right behind you is somebody who's the polar opposite in many ways. Ed Ballou, my longest teammate, he's a scientist.
Yeah.
He's an analytical, detail-oriented, this is not who I am, but yet he still had passion, and and passion doesn't have to be extroverted like maybe my passion is.
Right.
He can be, you listen to Ed, people, he's like the Jacques Cousteau of ponds.
Yeah.
So the reality was that right behind, quote unquote, my face when I'm looking in the mirror saying I got to find someone just like me is a guy who's a scientist that's bald that is nothing like you.
Yeah.
That if you give him a rope, he can either climb or hang himself.
Right.
And all of the people that have been here for 10, 15, 20, 25 years have taken that rope and climbed, where many, many others have thousands of people have come in through and gone through our doors. But my job is to make sure that I get the right people with the right attitude, give them the right resources to succeed, and then get out of the way. If I micromanage my teammates, well, first of all, here's my logic on that.
Yeah.
If I hire you and tell you this is the job that I want you to be done, and then I disagree with the way that you're going about doing it and you fail, you can come right back to me and say, I wasn't successful because you made me hire this person or you made me do it your way versus my way. So instead of doing that, what I do is I argue with them. I say, I don't agree with this. And then if they push back, which is, of course, the job of somebody who's not a butt kisser but a manager,
right,
then I say, let's roll the dice. And then maybe 50% of the time it might work out their way, 50% of the time it might work out my way that I thought, and then at the end I say, tell me I was right. And so you're right. Okay, now what did we learn from this, and let's move on. Now, of course, if they keep making those mistakes, they wouldn't have a job.
Right.
But I have literally known that managers in this company were making mistakes, but I've known it was a bigger mistake for me to tell them not to do it because that's what they wanted to do.
Right.
They had to learn the tough way, their lessons, and eventually, of course, I rely on them for making the right decisions, more often than not, and that's how they become successful.
How do you balance that out? What's your perspective there of like how do you let somebody continue to fail, continue to make mistakes versus knowing that they're learning lessons? Because let's say you're hiring a new guy, right? Or you're letting some guy take over more of a leadership role in your company, right? Whether that's running a crew or running, Aquascape, right? So where's that balance? Because a lot of these are really common questions that I get to receive all the time for guys that are trying to grow a company and grow 2, 4, 5, 10 guys or go to that next level. So how do you balance out letting people make mistakes versus letting them, take time to learn those hard lessons?
Well, I'm going to unfortunately give you a not a straightforward answer on that.
Yeah.
Because it really depends on the person. What kind of mistakes are they making? Are they making a mistake because they don't care?
Yeah.
Are they making a mistake because I didn't, give them the proper training? Are they making a mistake? So what's the reasons for the mistakes?
Context.
And is it the same mistake again and again? Obviously, there's a competency level involved in there. So every individual person is different.
Sure.
Which is why it's important when you're hiring and working with somebody that you kind of figure out what their skill sets are, because you might have the right people on the bus, but they might be in the wrong seats.
Sure.
So we've moved construction guys to maintenance and maintenance guys to construction, because they have different skill sets. But that's your job as an owner to kind of try to work with that person to kind of figure out.
Right. So you're just, as a leader, you're trying to put all these people in their best positions, their best roles to watch them blossom and flourish in your company.
So Brian and Ed couldn't be more opposite, the two longest teammates at Aquascape. And they are in very different roles, even though they have overlapping because they both are out in the field.
Yeah.
But Ed is, the VP of product development, or really he's the VP of going out and, how do I say this? He's field research, so he's more
This
working.
is Ed right out here, right?
Yeah, Ed is Ed the pond professor.
Yeah.
Where Brian is the VP of the local market, so he's out trying to see how we actually price and sell and put packages together and everything else. So Ed might bring in less revenue dollars than Brian does, but what he's doing is he's creating the products that we're going to be putting in the future, because he works with product development and stuff.
Right.
So. But Ed is a scientist type of a mindset, where Brian is he's an entrepreneurial type mindset, and he loves the sales process.
Right.
So
and it's fun. It's funny because a lot of guys, Greg, they watch my content. They know my guy Rob. Rob's like my foreman now, and Rob's graduating to do that role in my company.
Yep.
And I'm not above it or anything like that. I just have other priorities. We still growing the company. I love running the company. We're still going to be doing iterations and other fun stuff in my company for me personally. But I want to document my house. My wife's pregnant. We're having a baby in July. All this fun stuff, right? So we're trying to figure out what my role is and keep a couple plates spinning all at the same time, right?
Sure.
One thing that I wanted to talk to you about was you just hit a nail on the head. I thought it was really, really good. And I'd love to hear you talk about this a little bit, because I see a lot of folks more paying attention to this over the last 12 months and here forward. And that's creating systems for people to understand, follow, plug into. I think if I looked at Aquascape externally, right, and I come into your ecosystem, everybody kind of seems like they know what their role is. They know what they're doing. And I've been into many different businesses, many different places, talked to a lot of different people, and I can say that's not always the case. Nobody's walking around here with their head cut off going, what do I do today? Or just idle, right? Everybody seems to know their role. And so if somebody said like, hey, Greg Wittstock, what do you think about him? I'd say great dude, great attitude, crushing it with business, great culture, great vision for his business, and great systems. And I'm sure there's a laundry list of other things, right? But to me, that's when I think Greg, I think those couple things. And I want to talk to you about systems, because standard operating procedures to, everybody's different roles. Like you said, in the company, you've recognized problems, and then you create systems to fix those problems so they don't keep happening.
Well,
when did you become a systems guy?
Let's
you got to take that back 20 years for me.
Sure. Well, I can do that. But I would like to. It's not me necessarily creating the systems now. It's the managers who manage the departments, right?
So you put a system of people together to make systems for you.
So I've always been systems based mentality, right?
Why is that? Are you just sequential? Are you a logical dude? The sports background?
Yes, all of those, but what it really came to, and then this is just, how kind of, I guess it came about with that was I had so many water features to sell, and sold, and I couldn't get to them all, and I needed to train other guys to do it.
Sure.
And so I put together 20 products and 20 steps to build the water features that I would train the guys to do.
Sure.
And so I wanted a replicatable process so that I could control the quality and the estimating and the materials and needs and everything else for the water features that I was building.
Right.
It's no different than a hardscaper doing a hardscape or a guy that's doing yard maintenance. He's got a system for that. So that I just took that process through, and then from a marketing standpoint, what really created, we were an Inc. 500 fastest growing privately held company from 1999 to 2002.
Okay.
So we had 2,221% growth rate. It was our biggest, growth rate percentage, and we were the 91st fastest growing publicly held company in the country.
Wow.
Back in that, I think that was 2001, and I use a system for my marketing.
Yeah.
We became the largest green industry marketer. I went from mailing 26,000 catalogs once a year to mailing out 3.2 million catalogs 8 times a year.
Wow. So hold on. So that's crazy. So what was the prerogative? What was the idea? Did you see the internet? Did you see opportunity with the market? What was the idea behind
that? I'm not that smart.
Whatever.
Do you know what, Brian? Do you know what the easiest way to be successful in life is?
Find what other people do and duplicate them.
Bingo. So I moved.
Hey, I got a right answer. I need the little horn button on the podcast.
Congrats. The easiest way to be successful in life is find somebody succeeding at doing what you want to do and do what they did. In 1995, that's when I got my first warehouse, and I mailed out 26,000 catalogs to a rented list of landscape contractors, garden centers, architects. And I moved into a 1,800 square foot warehouse.
Okay.
On the corner of the street that I moved into was a 36,000 square foot warehouse.
Right.
And the front sign said "in the swim," and I go, they've got to do something with water in the swim.
Yeah.
And so this is classic me, maybe an entrepreneur. I'm going to go introduce myself to my neighbors and find out what it is that they do. Maybe there's some sort of way we can do business together or something. I can learn from them. And I went in and I talked to the receptionist and said, "Hey, I'm Greg Wittstock, the pond guy. I'm your new neighbor. I'd love to meet the owner of this place." And what do you think she said to me?
I would imagine sure, but probably no.
Well, she said, "Let me see if Mr. Coxworth is available."
Okay.
And while I was standing there, I looked up and I saw these girls in bikinis on pictures on the wall, and I realized that it was a pool supply company in the swim. It still exists today.
Okay.
And they were mailing out catalogs, like with selling floaters and chlorine and rubber duckies and stuff. And about 5 minutes later, Jim Coxworth came up, and I said, "Hey, I'm the Greg Wittstock, the pond guy." And he kind of chuckled, "I'm Jim Coxworth, the pool guy." And what was fun, Brian, was the next hour and a half he toured me around the whole building and his whole operations, and I was just so impressed by everything. And at the very end, I asked this question, which I think is a terrific question, by the way, and your question answer. I said, "Jim, what was the best business decision you ever made?" And he said, "Oh, that's easy. I hired O'Keefe Henry Direct as my direct mail marketing company."
Okay.
And I go, "What's a direct mail marketing company?"
Sure.
And he goes, "Oh, they manage your lists, and they rent lists from different associations or publications, and then they mail the catalog out, and they test how many people respond to it and if it's valuable or not." And so I said, and now here's the next thing that's kind of cool with this. I said, "Would you have their contact information?" And he handed me a card for Peter Henry and Gene O'Keefe.
Okay.
And I walked down the street, went into my massive 1,800 square foot warehouse, walked in, and the most amazing part of this whole story is I picked up the phone and called the number.
Yeah.
It wasn't just hearing some good advice. It was taking action with that good advice. And a week and a half later, a BMW pulls up into my shop, and it was Peter Henry and Gene O'Keefe, and they got out and they spent a couple hours explaining to me how they do list rentals and marketing and how and I said, "Listen, when people get my catalog, they file it in their file cabinet under P for ponds."
Right.
And they're like, "Yeah, no, they don't do that." And they're like, "We'll show you when we do this." So you got to mail multiple times a year. You got to hit the person when he was just on a consultation the day before with a water feature or whatever. And were they a proven entity to me, or were they unproven?
They were proven.
Because my neighbor's got a 36,000 square foot warehouse. I got an 1,800 square foot warehouse. So,
right.
So I ended up hiring O'Keefe Henry Direct, and we went from mailing 26,000 catalogs once a year to mailing out 3.2 million catalogs 8 times a year. And my sales went from I think that year, my first year in 95, I did 191,000 in mail orders, and then we ended up doing eventually $60 million in mail order sales, mailing out those 3.2 million catalogs. My response rate was 0.7%. So out of 110 catalogs I would mail, I get one order.
Right.
But it cost me 45 cents to mail a catalog, so $50 to mail 110 catalogs or whatever, and the average sale was $1,400. So you get cost you $50 and you bring in $1,400, and if you're making 30-40% gross profit margin, you mail more catalogs, and that's how I just every year upped up the catalogs. But it was following a system for marketing. Yeah. I had a system for construction. So so it's not necessarily I'm creating the system. I created 20 products in 20 steps, but I followed a system that somebody else, O'Keefe Henry Direct, suggested.
Greg, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. You're over here like all fired up. And I'm honestly like, this is what I've been trying to really help a lot of folks understand this last 12 months. And that's why we've been doing the podcast. The podcast has been so well received because we can get guys like you on, guys like Stanley on, so many other great successful business owners. And everything you just said just is incredible. I really hope you guys go back and re-listen to this last like 10 minutes where Greg just, drops the mic. So these systems have helped you grow Aquascape to where it is today, not just you working your guts out. Just that's the elephant in the room, because you're only one person in this whole organization, right?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, you're only as good as in your strength is also your weakness. Mm-hmm. And I don't try to play. I do not play in my weaknesses. So I'm not a manager of people. This is not something that I'm good at. So this is where I have the HR manager is a female. She's good with people. The president is a female. The CFO is a female. Not that females are better or worse or whatever, but I just found people that had good skill sets, got them into those positions, or they were in another position. Colleen, who's been with me for 20 years, she started off as a controller, went up to the CFO when the company almost went under after the 2008 economy crash. She did such a good job of managing the financials through that time. I in 2010, I think I made her the president.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, and this is like not a trick question, right? Let's slow down here because I got to ask you something really funny. Do you listen to my podcast every day or every week?
Your podcast?
Yeah, you can say no because I'm sure you don't.
I don't listen to it every day or every week, but I've heard your podcast because I follow you on Instagram and YouTube.
Sure. But you know what the irony is that everything you've been talking about the last 20 minutes here, how many times a year did we get to talk? 2, 3, 4, 5 times?
Sure.
Nothing too crazy, but
text messages.
Yeah, text messages. We keep in touch, of course. But it's funny, everything you just said is what I've spent a year trying to just pour my heart out there, studying business, studying success. And then I come meet you. We don't talk every day, but yeah, you say exactly the stuff that I'm learning about success in business. It's fascinating to me.
I was on a board for the American Leadership Academy in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Not a bad place to be on a board member, right?
Yeah,
we go to Cabo for the month of March for years.
Yeah.
And it was training tomorrow's leaders today, which is young 18 to 22-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And one of the complaints we would get on the forum is all the speakers are saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You just follow that advice, which of course is very hard. Like, if you remember when I said hearing the advice from Jim Coxworth about O'Keefe Henry Direct, the thing that really didn't matter if I heard the greatest advice unless I took action.
Right.
And walking across the street. And then it was a $42,000 commitment for me as a small business back in the day to hire them. But it was a fantastic business decision because they went from 26,000 catalogs to 3.2 million.
Well, it's funny. I went to a seminar once, and the guy said, meetings don't make you successful. They prepare you to be successful.
Sure.
So you walk into a seminar, you're there for 8 hours, right? But externally, if you walk in and walk out, nothing's really changed, but you learned a bunch of new stuff and education and maybe some inspiration, some motivation for sure.
Yes.
But what happens? You have to go out and execute.
Well, at the end of the day, it's always about execution, right?
Absolutely.
And the thing is about that seminars, I know you did your Launchpreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love guys that are willing to invest in themselves.
Yeah.
I would say if you say what is a good trait of mine, one of the few things that I'm good at is I'm always investing in myself. Mm-hmm. I just spent $4,000 yesterday for being in a writing course that I missed the first episode when you came in. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to listen to it on delay because I was spending time with you. We went and got pizza, and then I missed the kickoff for that. I'm like, unbelievable. I was spending time with Brian.
I'm an expensive date, bro. What can I say?
Which is why I need someone to be organized around me to keep me on point.
Yeah.
And I have a new executive assistant. And I go, hey, just so you know, when I have a point, like you have to call me and tell me, hey, you got a thing in 15 minutes because I was having fun with you riding my skateboard around.
Yeah. Well, It's funny because was it this morning? I came into your office. I go, hey, what are you doing? You go, I don't know. And I said, what do you mean? You go, I got stuff to do today, but I got my calendar. She tells me, and I go, so I had a couple questions. You go, I don't know that answer. You need to go ask this person. So I think it's funny because our personality types are polar opposite, but like the way you run your company is like kind of how I'm like running my businesses lately. And I find a lot of inspiration getting to hang out with you. You're one of the most fun people I get to hang out with once or twice a year. Hey, one thing I wanted to talk about, and this is you didn't ask me to bring this up by any way, shape, or form, but I want to talk to you about the systems you're building, and that piggybacks onto Aquascape University. Okay, so this is a new pet project of your guys the last 12 months, but it really launched about 8 weeks ago?
January 1st, yeah.
January 1st. Okay, so walk us through this. Aquascape University, I was talking to Jeff for about a good half hour, and he's the
VP of Business Development.
Okay, so that's his brainchild with a lot of other folks on the team.
Yeah, so he doesn't record many sessions, but he was the one who organized all of the presenters to what the topics that they were going to be presenting to make a full-rounded university, which is 63 hours of online programming.
Yep.
I think like 10 of the courses are free. Like there's 17 that you purchase.
Yeah.
But anybody can start that at Aquascape, www.aquascapeuniversity.com.
Yeah.
And so you can start for the free courses, and if you like what you're learning as a side hustle,
right,
or an additional hustle to what you're doing with as you're a mow and blow guy, then you can of course invest in the courses. But the experts, the world experts, Ed, Brian, myself, whoever it is from Aquascape, are talking about what we actually do.
Absolutely.
We're the only manufacturer of water feature equipment in the world that builds water features every day.
And you have a system to do it.
We have a system to do it, and we teach the system because basically we're a franchise system without a franchise fee.
Yeah.
And what we don't say to the mow and blow guys or to any contractor is stop doing what you're doing. We say add a water feature service to it, but do it right.
Sure.
So the project that we're out here that you came out to film a little bit with the Sandbox Studio, that's a trigonometry or whatever the most advanced form of college math would be. You know? It's never a good math guy myself.
Cosine tangent. I got you.
But you would somebody wouldn't take that for years. They wouldn't take a project like that on. They would do small fountainscapes and pondless waterfalls, which are the addition and subtraction and maybe multiplication. Before they would master that, you don't just jump up to the higher level
you got to walk
math
before you can run. Yeah.
So for me, the no-brainer, and it's frustrating. It's kind of actually it's painful because I don't really get it.
Yeah.
Is why a guy who has a relationship with Mrs. Jones or whoever that they've been cutting their lawns at for a couple of years wouldn't say, hey, go back to those current customers, because marketing is the getting and keeping of customers. Most people focus on the getting. The more valuable thing is the keeping.
Sure.
Because you already have the relationship with Mrs. Jones and say, hey, we could put a little fountainscape out here for $3,500 in it. Now we go into a second segment, which is a contractor oftentimes said, I would never pay $3,500 for that. And you go, oh, thank God Mrs. Jones isn't you.
Yeah.
Right? $1 to you is 10 cents to Mrs. Jones or whatever it is. You don't have the same value equation that the customer has. So a contractor should never associate their value of $1 with the customers, because the customers, more often than not, are in a different financial situation.
Sure.
And their value is whatever they perceive it to be, whatever you as a salesman could sell it for.
Right.
So the whole goal for me with talking to guys like yourself who have a reach and an impact with contractors out there is to get them to add the right water features for their customers.
Sure.
Not trigonometry, advanced, forms of high-level math like the project that we have going on here, but a fountainscape, which is an addition and subtraction.
Right.
Anybody can put a fountainscape in, watching a video and then digging a hole.
Well, in fact, cool story this morning. I don't know if it was planned or not, but there was a guy up front that wanted to learn more about Aquascape and install these nights and weekends as a hobby.
He was a carpenter that started watching my vlog, Greg Wittstock, the pond guy on YouTube.
Yeah.
I always say I love my job because that's my byline. He goes, I didn't love my job, and I liked aquariums. I was, had aquariums as a kid, and I had kind of thing. And he goes, I wanted to do this, and so he signed up for the university, the Aquascape University. He was in Wisconsin, which is only an hour to 2 hours away.
Okay.
And so he just drove down. He was meeting with one of the reps, and he was just coming back in the Sandbox Studio to say hi.
Yep.
And get a picture.
Tom? What was his name? Tom?
His name was Mark.
Mark. Okay.
Maybe Tom was yesterday. No, that was another guy yesterday. So people come through with the local sales guys.
I was going to say Brian was hosting somebody that came from the retail store earlier when you were here.
Oh, that was a different one. Those were two landscape architects.
Oh, okay. Dude, that's cool. People are just walking through here, like learning more about the stuff.
Well, Aqualand this is what we do. So we have a retail store, which is good for us because we keep our pulse on what's going on. But
sure,
just the conclusion of this kind of statement is, if you're a contractor and you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking about adding water feature services to your thing, start small. You don't need to go big. In fact, the smaller you go, usually the more profitable, because the less things can go wrong.
Right.
And go back to your existing customers.
Right.
Go to people that you have relationships with and talk to them about your goods and services, because there are already people that have told you they've liked you.
Right.
Because they've hired you for a service. And they wouldn't hire you if they didn't like you.
Yeah, I 100% dig it. It's funny. I was talking to Josh Sutton Outdoor. Shout out to Josh. He listens to the podcast. And we were DMing back and forth last night on Instagram. And he goes, I still need to get up to Aquascape. I go, well, what are you waiting for? Come on up here. Check it out. And he does hardscaping, landscaping, great projects. Kansas, maybe Missouri area. But I said, come on up here. I said, reach out to Greg on Instagram. He'll get you set up with the right people. Come on up here, hang out, check things out. I know it's kind of...
join the Aquascape University. And what I would say to Josh is, obviously, if he's a hardscape guy, he probably enjoys the creativity that comes with, doing... But there's nothing more creative than a decorative water feature.
Sure.
The imagination is the only thing that limits you, and but yet the process to build a decorative water feature stays the same.
That's awesome.
So whether I'm doing the process of 20 products in 20 steps remains the same.
Yeah.
And so the creativity then could flow, because instead of focusing on the form and the function, you're focusing just on the beauty and the decorative aspects.
Absolutely.
Every setting is different. Every rock, even if it's the same type of rocks, is unique. So each water feature is a unique work of art, one-of-a-kind custom creation. But the process to build them remains the same, and that's what we teach in the Aquascape University, that process.
It's really cool. I can tell you, outside looking in again, 3 years ago I came, the conversation has not changed.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Once again, just like we talked about success, why reinvent the wheel?
I love it. And but I'm telling you, Greg, there's so many things out there, so many people out there, so many gurus out there, and they do. Right? And so it's cool to see the same message being delivered 3 years later in just a short amount of time.
Sure.
But it's still the same thing that you're...
Well, we tweak it, right? So you came a couple years ago, you came to the Aquascape Academy, which we worked as a hand-on studio.
Yep.
Well, we can't really do that with a pandemic going on.
Right.
So then we pivot, we do the Sandbox Studio, and then we digitally flip things up on the Team Aquascape pages, the Greg Wittstock the Pond Guy pages, and we can teach people digitally. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, there are some people that have watched the videos, they're very passionate about it, and then they've sent me pictures of the decorative water features. 100 times better than any pond I built in my first 3, 4, 5 years in business.
Absolutely.
And their first one, because A, there's a paint by the number system to follow,
right.
and B, they're passionate, right? Those are the people that really care. And if you're willing to invest the time, energy, and effort to learn something, you can get pretty good pretty quick with everything online.
I love it. Hey, let me ask you this. We'll kind of land the plane here. One more thought I got, or question I have for you, if you get 10 more seconds. So we talked about hiring attitude, and then you train for aptitude, right?
Yep.
I always said the same thing. Like, people are like, well, my guys aren't fast. I said, well, speed comes with familiarity. Give them time. I said, so I love what you just said about hiring attitude and then training aptitude. I love how you also said eventually build a system, have standing operating procedures, put people in a environment where they can grow and blossom, right?
Yes.
I want to talk to, for just a quick minute, to maybe some encouraging words to guys that have 10, 20, 30 employee companies. There's some guys that listen to the show, and they have $1, $2, $3 million companies, $5 million companies. Not, I don't think Core Battle is listening to my show every day, you know what I mean? But I do, there's a handful of guys out there that do have multi-million-dollar companies, and they have 4, 5, 10, 20 guys. Vision casting, or what's the most important role as a CEO for those guys that have a 10 or 20 person crew or company? What's some things that you can give some encouraging thoughts to them that you've learned, maybe hard lessons along the way?
Well, not a quick answer, but a straightforward answer.
Yeah.
There's really 4 cycles of a business.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, which is the most common, is hands-on.
Yep.
So you got a guy, he's on the projects, he's an owner operator. You might have a guy working for him, but it's 1 or 2 man band type of thing.
Yep.
So it's a hands-on. The next phase is 3, 4, or 5 guys, and you'd be working with others.
Yep.
And in that phase, you have to then translate what's in your mind to somebody else's minds, and that gets a little bit harder because you might not be on the job with him that day. That guy has to do it, so that's working with others. The next phase is systems-based, which is what we're talking about with Aquascape.
Right.
And the only way to succeed, so it's pretty easy, or nothing is easy, but you can succeed as a hands-on because you're with one other guy or two other guys that you're with all the time. When you start to get into that range where you're working with others, the only way to be successful with working with others and you not drive yourself crazy and pull all your hair out is to have systems.
Yep.
So when you put systems in, then you can grow your business because you're not the point person trying to, be the guy that has to answer everything because you've got guys who know what the system is when this happens, this problem or this situation.
Yep.
The last phase of business is strategic. So strategic-based businesses or systems-based, when you have a strategic, it's actually where you want to go. So if you wanted to be strategic with your mow and blow business, you're going to say we're going to add decorative water features with a system. How to install a fountain basin or whatever. But the 4 stages of business: hands-on, working with others, systems-based, and strategic. If you're a hands-on or working with others and you add systems and strategic, you'll be more successful.
Yeah.
And so for me, if I'm answering your question on what to do, is I feel it's very difficult when you're working with others. That's the hardest stage on that. And the only way to be successful in that phase is by having systems based. Right. And then the way to be really successful is, okay, now we're doing this, but we're going to add strategically decorative water features to the mix because we can make a 50% gross profit margin on a $3,500 sale and have 2 guys do it in a half a day and put $2,000 in our pocket.
So strategically to you means figuring out an end goal and then figuring out strategically how we're going to get to it with what products or services
and the system.
And
the systems to pull it off.
Okay, that's cool. So like this year, you guys were saying you budgeted for, if I can say out loud, a certain dollar amount. And so the strategic is, here's how we're going to get to that sales number. Here's how we got the budget for that sales number.
So this is a good one. So this is where working on the business and not in the business is important. So for me, setting the strategy and the vision for the company, I told our local market R&D department, last year you sold $1.2 million in sales, which was equal to the year before at $1.2 million, 2019. But we did it despite the pandemic where we had to send guys out in their own vehicles.
Right.
If somebody got, a fever, he couldn't come into work. And it was just a major issues. So, but our goal was 1.4. So we were $200,000 less than our goal. It was everything in the kitchen sink to hit it. And I said, listen, instead of doing 1.4 or 1.2 again or 1.4 as a stretch goal, let's just do 800.
Right.
And post more, train more, teach more. And so what the analogy that I use is if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it really make a sound? If you build a water feature, your job is not just to practice with the products, and it's to Instagram it, Facebook it, YouTube it on the Team Aquascape educational channels so that people can learn this stuff. So build less, post more.
Right.
Well, nobody in my team who's so driven to do as much as possible and bring in as much revenue as possible would be able to say that. But Brian, for me, I'd rather get and you even asked me this. You said, hey, why don't you? I said, we're sold out. We're entering 2021 sold out for the whole year. And you said, well, why don't you add teams? I go, I don't want to add more R&D people. I want to get more contractors.
Right.
I want to get more people carrying our line, more people succeeding.
Yep.
And so
spread the news.
That's the strategy. So I could say, oh yeah, let's get 3 crews out there instead of 2 crews or 4 crews or whatever out there. But the problem is then I wouldn't be working on doing my number one goal, which is to help my customers succeed.
Right.
So if I can help more people succeed with this industry, then my sales are going to grow. And of course, the proof is in the pudding.
Right.
Because we'll have multi-million-dollar more revenue growth on the top line because we're teaching people to get into this industry successfully.
And by customer, you mean contractors, guys listening to the show.
Yep.
And other folks just like
we're a B2B. So the only B2C that we have is in the local market R&D.
Right.
And there's short-sighted people in here say, oh, we don't want to buy from Aquascape because they build 50 projects a year. And I'll say, yeah, but we gave out 250 projects.
You give leads out, 100% to the local area.
Because we're growing the pie. So,
absolutely.
So, and of course, a certified Aquascape contractor wants more contractors in the market because they want ponds done right and customers served right, which is our mantra, and not some guy that's out there with a hack doing it for half the price, putting in preformed tubs that leak, turn green, breed mosquitoes, and has all the fish eaten by raccoons, which is the traditional way.
That's the worst.
Which is why I'm always fighting contractors to say that, no, that's a Yugo. We don't sell Yugos.
Right.
Let's do this right. Let's position this correctly. Let's get you learning how to do fountainscapes and pondless waterfalls before you get up to ecosystem ponds and maybe eventually into recreation ponds and the bigger type of stuff like we're doing in the Sandbox Studio.
Man, this is good. We really appreciate the time. For real. This has been really, really fun. When I get to hang around with you, like I said, you're one of the most awesome business people I get to hang out with, and I get to talk to a lot of people. We've had 200 episodes almost, or whatever it is now on the podcast. You're still one of my most favorite guests to always talk to. I'm like, Greg, can we just? We don't even game plan on take notes or anything. I just say, hey, you ready to roll? And you go, yeah. We just hit record, we rock and roll, and I enjoy having a conversation with you. I tell Liz all the time. I was hanging out with Liz. We were FaceTiming last night about midnight, and she's like, how's things going? And she goes, you bored? You having fun? What's the scoop? And I said, no, this is awesome. I love hanging out with Greg. In Greg's people is what I said. I said, everybody talks like Greg. Greg talks like the people. Great people here. And you just have it going on. And I'm really excited for you.
So, Brian, thanks for having me on, and look forward to helping people succeed, and appreciate you.
Hey, really quick, we always like to do this when we sign off. Not that people don't know where to find you, but where can people find you if they don't know where you're at?
Greg Wittstock, the Pond Guy. Just Google the Pond Guy on, Greg Wittstock, the Pond Guy on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook.
Banging YouTube channel, by the way.
Yeah, we got 189,000 or so.
That's what's up.
And we're putting content out 7 days a week over 3 different channels. Team Aquascape, Ed the Pond Professor, and Greg's the Pond Guy. 7 days a week, 365 a year, because I have a system to do it.
Yeah.
We export the files to India and to Romania and to the Philippines, and we have editors out there that can edit and upload for $100 a pop.
And how many play buttons now? Silver play buttons, 1 or 2 channels over 100,000?
We got 2 channels over 100,000, and we're on our way to get a 3rd channel.
And Greg, obviously you're like 26 years old, man. So you're young. Yeah, you get the social media stuff.
Yes, I'm a 50-year-old, but I like to. You know what? You always got to be changing. You got to be adapting.
Well, that's why you got the boosted board.
The boosted board is fun,
which Jeff told me, by the way, took you out, and that's why you're doing that.
I've fallen one time on it, and of course I did it with an influencer, so he got it on video, and so I don't know if he's going to use it. I said, you could use it. It's pretty funny, but it's because of all the dirt going on from the Sandbox studio in here.
Is that right?
Yeah, the wheels slid out because there's dust.
That's why you got to get the one wheel. It's got the big rubber meaty wheel.
That's impressive that you can ride that. I'm impressed.
If you can ride that, you can ride the boosted board. But the boosted board is still a skateboard, and I've never messed around with that. And it was funny though because you didn't tell me that you had just took a tumble 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
I go, this thing looks dangerous.
The first and only tumble. Yeah, well, you know what? It's okay because you were only moving about 3 miles an hour. So if you fall, you can probably just land on your feet.
I'm a pretty low energy, pretty conservative dude. Like some people are extroverts, some people are introverts. And I had the little hand thing that you get, the little remote, and I was pushing it forward. And Greg's like, it goes more than 1 mile an hour, right? And I said, get away from me, man, relax. And you were like walking in front of me, you're like, dude, you're on wheels, bud. What's going on? I'm like, just relax, man. I'm on my pace, So, but anyway, all right. Well, hey guys, we'll button it up right here. We always appreciate the guests that join us on the show and all of you guys that have been on the show, past, present, and future. But we definitely appreciate Greg jumping on this episode with us. And again, we're live here at Aquascape. If you guys haven't seen the YouTube videos of this whole, award-winning, beautiful pond and backyard landscape, hardscape that we're putting together, go check it out on YouTube. The video probably just dropped about a week or 2 ago, and it's just a lot of fun here. We're hanging out with all the folks at Aquascape. So, guys, we'll wrap it up right here. Let's kick it over back to Marty, Mr. Producer, to wrap the show up, and we'll catch up with you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Brian. I bet when Greg there towards the end was referencing a Yugo that many of you younger guys have no idea what he was talking about. A Yugo was a Yugoslavian-made subcompact car. It was a hatchback, and many observers called it the worst car in history. Now, the reason it deserved that moniker was simple. You crash, you go. Yeah, that thing was a death trap, worse than my 1971 Ford Pinto. So the question is, what type of business do you want? Something like what our guest and Brian have built, or do you want to be the Yugo of lawn care? No, you don't want to be the Yugo of lawn care. That's why I keep urging you to check out the whole ball of wax over at LaunchpreneurAcademy.com. We're going to see you guys back on Wednesday, and thanks again to today's show sponsor.
Ballard Innovative Products is a full line of gear for the lawn and landscape professional. From mower gear, safety gear, trailer racks, equipment securement, equipment servicing tools, aerators, mower blades, X-blades, aluminum baggers, and much more to make you efficient, effective, safe, and profitable in the field. Check out Ballard-Inc.com to help dominate and elevate your business. Ballard Innovative Products. With over 20 years of selling accessories and 30 years in the business, we're sure that we've got something you can't live without. We appreciate the support and look forward to serving you this season. Stay safe and keep grinding, friends. And don't forget to use Brian's 10 to save 10% at Ballard-Inc.com.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.
This has been a Brian Fullerton and Mr. Producer production.
Introducing the new Yugo, a paramount engineering achievement from Yugoslavia. From busy traffic to rough terrain, Yugo will lead you anywhere. From the west to east coast, Yugo defeats the competitors. Reliability is his second name. Dependability and safety now have a totally new meaning. Do not hold your horses. Your dream of a tough, dependable car can finally be fulfilled. Buy yourself some freedom. Buy a Yugo. Yugo, more freedom for less money.